You are listening to the Digital to Dice podcast, episode 17. I am Dave.
I'm Ron.
Boy, that intro never gets old. It's so full of energy, that intro. I love it.
It really is.
Get you going.
That's
Get
great.
you ready to record the show. So, anyway, yeah, episode 17. We're recording this on November 8th of 2019. Holy, we're almost in 2020. Is it going to be hindsight?
I was doing a stream today, Dave, and I said the current year, and it came out 19. Like, I'm a full century behind, man.
Yeah, imagine that 1919. That was 2019. Didn't the Red Sox win in 1919 or something like that?
No, actually, that was the Black Sox year. So Cincinnati won because the Chicago White Sox allegedly threw the series.
Oh, okay. Oh, boy. Anyway. Hey, before we get into anything today, before we get into what we're playing and the topic of the day, a little public service announcement here. On an upcoming show before Black Friday, we would like to announce any Black Friday sales or Cyber Monday sales that you are having. So if you're a game developer, if you know a game developer, if you're a game promoter, please get us that information if you'd like us to mention that here on the show. So any Black Friday sales or Cyber Monday sales that you're having, let us know. We already have a handful that we're going to go over. We'll mention on that show. But definitely get those in. There's a couple ways to get a hold of us. Obviously, our website is digitaltodice.com. Our text line, 978-751-DICE, 978-751-3423. On Facebook, we have a group on Facebook, facebook.com/group/digital-to-dice. And if you'd like to email that in to me, if you have a sale or a promotion or anything like that you're going to be promoting over the Black Friday or Cyber Monday, send that to Dave.Gardner@rocketmail.com. Dave.Gardner@rocketmail.com.
And ideally, you should have that into us no later than November 16th, because we want to tape that one early that week because it's a holiday week and give Dave time to edit it. So no later than Saturday the 16th.
Yeah, so we'll probably try to get that episode up. If we don't get it out that Tuesday or Wednesday of Thanksgiving, we won't release that on Thanksgiving. That'd be too late. So if we'll either get it out the week before Thanksgiving or that weekend before Thanksgiving. So give you guys time to listen to it and get all those specials. So yeah, so definitely get those in the next couple of weeks if you want us to talk about anything that you're, any of your games that you're having special sales on or anything like that. Okay, that being said, why don't we start talking about what we're playing? Don't do it. Don't do it.
So tell me, Uncle Dave.
You
Is that
did
a
it.
bad thing to have happen?
Oh, boy. So anyway, over here, Ron, it's just been hockey. That's all I've been playing over here. I've been playing all kinds of hockey. Franchise.
You've been playing with a war puck for a long time.
Oh, man. Franchise Hockey Manager 6 I've been playing. I've been playing Action PC Hockey. I've been playing Strat PC Hockey. I've been playing Strat Cards and Dice Hockey. And there might have been one other hockey game I played. I can't think off the top of my head. But I'm just going nuts here. I went back to Action PC Hockey playing my 1974 Boston Bruins. And I actually streamed a game online. It was a morning game, actually. I get up because of the time change. That's what it was. The first Monday after the time change, you turn the clocks back. So I get up, bing. I get up in the morning. It's like, well, it feels like 8, but it's only 7. But I was wide awake. So I ended up streaming a game on my my YouTube channel. It was Boston and Chicago. Boston versus the Blackhawks. Yep. Fun game. That was a real fun game I streamed there. Then I fired up my Franchise Hockey Manager 6, still playing the Kansas City Scouts, and I'm still terrible, so I don't know what I'm going to do with that. Maybe just finish out the season with 2 wins and try to play for the draft pick for next season. Not sure.
Oh, there you go. You know, the first pick of the draft.
Yeah, but it's embarrassing. I get 2 wins on December 31st. It's just embarrassing.
That's the thing. I mean, Washington won 9 that year.
Yeah, and they're in second place in my replay, which is weird.
That's because the computer cheated.
Yeah, they took 35-year-old Bobby Hull, who's and the goalies they took. We each picked goalies side by side. My goalies are terrible. Their goalies are good. Who would figure it? But and then playing some Stratron, I got a couple different projects going. I got the Bruins Rangers 72 Cup Finals going on. I originally started playing that with the cards and dice, and then I went over to the utility and started playing that on the utility a little bit. Boy, very, very different results. Game 1 in cards and dice was 3-1 Boston. Mm-hmm. Game 2 cards and dice was 8-4 Rangers. And then just last night, I played Game 3 cards and dice, 2-1 Boston in overtime. Boston had 12 shots on Giacomin. Rangers, 36 shots on Chivas. Only could get one by him. Bruins had 8 penalties. The first 8 penalties of the game went to Boston. Killed all of them off except the last one. The Rangers tied the game on a power play goal in the third. So they were 1 for 8 in the power play. Then Johnny Busick in overtime won it for me. I mean, being a Bruins fan, it was a real fun game, but it was hilarious. Just as I was writing the stats down, I was like, penalty Boston, penalty Boston, penalty Boston, penalty Boston, goal Boston, penalty Boston, penalty Boston.
Eerily similar to the real-life game last night between Montreal and Philadelphia.
Yeah, it was just one-sided. And there was nothing. There was nothing on the Rangers side. Like, aside from shots on net, there was nothing on the Rangers side of the score sheet.
Philadelphia put 43 shots on the price in regulation time. They were up 2-0, and Montreal literally stole a point. And there was some controversy in the game. So pretty much is the same thing. It's like you do everything right as far as if you're a Ranger fan is concerned and can't get it done. I mean, that's a whole nother subject of taking advantage of your opportunities when you get them. And sometimes that will come back like it did in that game to bite you in the tushy. I'm looking at you, Houston Astros, or Boston Bruins. That you got to take advantage of your opportunities. And I think it's one of the things that all these games do really well is, kind of foreshadowing. Here's your chance. Here's your chance. Here's your chance. Nope.
Yeah, it just was, 18 shots in the second period by the Rangers, couldn't score. I was holding my breath every time I rolled the goalie check, and Chivas come through every time for me, except in the very last one. And Busick somehow scored in the second period to put him up 1-0, and then Busick scored in overtime. But, I mean, Bobby Orr had a breakaway, couldn't score. Phil Esposito had a breakaway, couldn't score. It just... I only got 12 shots on, but the ones I got were decent quality shots. I was penetrating, I was passing, and inside shot after inside shot. And every time it was a goalie rating check, Giacomin made the save. And there weren't many of them, weren't many shots, weren't many saves, but the ones I had, he made. And
those are the games that make you pull your hair out. And if you're like me, there's just not much left to pull out.
But it was fun. I was sitting at the table just playing it, and I was like, wow, I can't believe I'm not getting smoked. So that was a 2-1 final. But getting back to the utility, when I played on the utility, the Rangers Bruins, it was 7-4 Bruins and then 7-4 Rangers. So it was just weird that all of a sudden I had 11 goals in games 1 and also 11 goals in game 2. And then on the cards and dice, it was a much different story.
Well, real quick on that, they're technically two different engines, because in the utility, the action cards are at random, and so you could theoretically, when you pull a card, pull any one of those 30. It's going to count to 30 fast action cards, but I suppose in some weird way you could get all 30 cards be the same in the same period.
It could.
As opposed to a card and dice game, unless you're mixing and matching, that's the word I want, mixing and matching decks, you're going to, once you run through those 30 cards, they're gone.
Well, I was shuffling. I was trying to play it like the utility.
So a little bit like that.
Yeah, so I would, every time I change a line, wouldn't matter how many cards I laid, okay, change a line, and I'd shuffle them up, and I would just keep track of how many cards I played to count the period. But, yeah, I was trying to get a little more randomness than burning through 30 cards. Just, whatever. That's just how I was playing it.
When you played the cards and dice, did you go with the super advanced power play, or did you use the chart?
I used the chart I was going mostly advanced rules.
Yeah, and that honestly makes a huge difference, because you can get on the super advanced, you might, as have the other team ice the puck the entire time and not get a single sniff.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other times you win a face off in the zone and you might have 7 shots. Although it's technically the same engine, there's subtle differences.
But I do remember that I was playing, there was one power play where they got 5 shots. It was 5 chances, and they got 5 shots. And then there was another power play that I rolled, and it was a breakaway for the Bruins. They didn't score, and it was no shots. And so yeah. So, but I mean, just so much fun playing. And then I have the Bruins Blues. I started to replay that too from the 1970s finals, Bruins versus Blues. I'm playing that on the PC game actually.
We're going to talk more about that.
And and that kind of prompted us for our topic of today, which is going to be perception versus reality. Because I ran into I don't want to say an issue, but I come across something that happened that I talked to you about, and you were like, "Boy, that would make a great topic for a show." So
we'll get to that in a second. And I honestly got to say that when you brought it up, I was surprised with what I found. But we'll save that for the show.
So I was playing the series is tied 1-1. Bruins barely won game 1 in St. Louis, and then they got smoked in game 2, and that's when I contacted you and I said, hey, check this out. Look what's happening in this game. 36 shots by the Bruins, and they got smoked in that game. In fact, I took Chivas out and put Johnston in because Chivas got lit up, and it was a very, very bizarre game. Unfortunately, though, I'm still learning how to use that Strat PC program, and somehow the game didn't finish, and then when I went back in to finish it, I finished it, and it counted as 2 games. And so I was trying to keep stats for the entire series, and it's still showing game 1 and game 2, but the stats are showing 3 games played. And then I went back in again to try to just like flip the last card and finish it. Now it counted 4 games. And someone else on the Strat group on Facebook said he had that same problem where some reason there was a little glitch in the game, just kept registering over and over and over and over. So
you said I had 1 second left, which obviously you can't flip a card, but it just keeps the game open.
Yeah, and that's what it seemed to do for me. So I got to go back and I'm still learning. That's the thing about the Strat PC and the Action PC games.
Would you like me to get into the problems I've had with Action PC this week?
Well, hang on, we'll get to that. They're very antiquated in how they're set up, and they're very old. But that's not necessarily a bad thing because once you get into it, there's not a lot to it. You can really figure it out relatively quick. Let's put it this way, there's not a lot of buttons to push. There's not a lot of options to go over. So once you learn the handful of options they got, you can figure out the game. And both of those games, I had a little bit of trouble with, but not a lot. Because it's okay. What does this do? What does this do? What does this do? What are some other games? I'm completely lost when I try to play them on the computer because there's so much going on. So these, even though they're a basic setup and they're an older interface, and they got their own little quirks, they're really not that difficult to figure out. And once you figure it out, it's a piece of cake.
The average age of the player tends to be older in these games too. And you don't want to confuse people with interfaces. They're not the prettiest looking things in the world, but you want to if you still go through the forums, I can't figure out how to do this. I can't figure out how to do that. And you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. So it's easier just to keep it simple, I think, for those who just aren't the most computer savvy people. And just because we work on computers all the time doesn't mean that everyone who listens to the show or plays these games. In fact, a lot of people play the cards and dice games to get away from having to use the computer.
Yeah, I'm enjoying both. I'm enjoying playing. Yeah. I'm enjoying, like I said, I played the cards and dice last night. I had absolute blast. But there's been some nights this week that I kicked up my feet and just used the mouse and played the. I didn't want to set up the cards. I just wanted to play a game on the computer. So I'm enjoying both. And I am enjoying the simple interface of both of those games. And
for me, I've owned a computer since 1982, and at times I'd love to go back to the command line and run computers that way. So, interface as long as it's not clunky, it can look old as long as you can figure it out. But I've never had a problem with that.
Yeah, they're very different, and that's the thing about those games. There, starting to repeat myself now, but So in a way, they work. They work, and it's just. But there's a couple, you still have to learn them. But I found the learning curve on both of those to be a heck of a lot easier than some other computer games that I play. So I'm playing. That's what I've been playing. A lot of hockey. I finished the book run. I finished Icing on the Plains. the book about the Kansas City Scouts that I was talking to you about. In fact, I was talking to the author, Troy Treasure, about trying to get him on the show and basically just talk some 70s sports, because he had a lot of stuff in the book about 70s sports. So we should get you on. So we'll figure out a time to get Troy on. But yeah, Icing on the Plains about the Kansas City Scouts. I did a little review on my YouTube channel if you wanted to check that out about the book.
Check that out, yeah.
I enjoyed it. I did, and it was more than just Kansas City Scouts. It really talked a lot about sports in general at that time, especially the NHL. And what I really liked about it, when you go back and you read these books or you read like articles or sometimes you watch a show, sometimes it fills those little holes in the story. You know what I mean? It's like you remember things a certain way, but you're not quite sure how it all happened. And you read these stories like, oh, I remember something about that, but I didn't remember exactly how it went down. Or I remember that guy coming to this team, but I didn't know why. Or, you know, why this team, I remember this team being bad and not, and you know, okay. So a lot of these holes got filled in, you know what I mean? Like a little spackle on a story of my 70s hockey memory got filled in with this book. And that's what I really enjoyed about that. So, cool. So, yeah, what have you been playing?
Well, you and I did stream together for our buddy Al Red Sox fans' 50th birthday. We did Action PC, and we did the first ever home game in Hartford Whalers NHL history from Springfield, Massachusetts. And had a blast of a time doing it. Hartford almost pulled that off, but you could just see the tides turn.
That was a fun game, yeah, because you were doing play-by-play, and I actually was filling in on color, and we were broadcasting it live.
For hockey, it should be the other way around, because hockey is the weakest of the sports that I do.
That's all right. I thought you did. It was a good time. Yeah, it was.
Good time.
Yeah, the Kings ran out to a huge lead, and the Whalers come all the way back, and then the Kings went up
they were
again.
down 4-1 and fourth to 4-4 tie.
Gordie Howe was in that game, and Marcel Dion.
No, that was fun.
It was a good. I mean,
kids get to play with them and all that. That was great.
That was a fun game. Yep.
I had one of the rougher things this week was, you know, if you follow my Retro Sports Network channel at all on YouTube, I've been doing the 1986 NFL season week by week, and this would be week 10. And so I want to do a game Monday night. I somehow backed into being quite clever. I honestly did not know that I was going to do – I had put off the second game of the week. I was going to do it Monday night because the week isn't over till Monday night. And it just happened to be I was going to do the Cowboys and the Giants before the Monday night game between the Cowboys and the Giants. How clever is that? I wish I had thought of that. I really, really didn't.
It's fun when stuff like that works out. When you go to play a game and that's the one that's on TV. That, you know,
I mean, like,
that's cool.
Wow.
Yep.
And so I went to open the game to stream, to set up for it. And the Dallas Cowboys had been taken over by the invasion of the Body Snatchers. They were a broken down version of the Atlanta Falcons. And so I thought I had a corrupt file. And so I did a video, no game today. We'll figure out what's going on, blah, 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 blah. And so Al, as a matter of fact, said to me about an hour later, this has happened before. I'll send you the emails of what happened and how we fixed it. And so I did a follow-up video on how I've actually fixed it. And then when in the process of trying to get things squared away, found out that the football game had released 3 or 4 patches since the one that I had. Now, I'm going to do a little bit on the rant that I did in the video is, as a customer of any game, okay, and this is not, specifically this is for the Action PC line, but for any game, if I am a customer of said computer game, or a card and dice game, if you turn, let's say you print out the 7980 Montreal Canadiens and you hit a wrong button and it's the 7980 Quebec Nordiques with the name, like Guy Lafleur didn't have 400 penalty minutes. What are you doing here? If Dave sends a correction and says, oh no, I printed this wrong, you thank them. You realize that they owed them to the mistake and move on. I would be quite upset if I had to chase after the corrections and whatever it is. And it turned out that none of the 4 patches were advertised on this company's weekly emails. So we know whenever all the sales stuff's going on, but like if you're doing a replay and one team morphs into another, you should be told of that critical error. If you are a customer of our football game, please download this critical patch. You may not know what the critical error is, but that's a pretty good reason to download it. We were able to get around it, but I lost. I think I had to resim, all told, 7 games because I had made a schedule change and screwed up 1 week. And it's going to knock one team probably out of the playoffs because of that change.
Well, I used to follow, the Tapper Talk forum over there with them, and they would let you know immediately when stuff was released and right there. But, they need to do a better job. I mean, they send out all the sales on the email. At least put in the sales, email like, hey, by the way, there's a patch for football. Or put it up on Facebook or somewhere.
Yeah.
Aside from just on their
because if you even with the form, and this could be for any game, if you go to look and you see that you go to look 2 or 3 times and you see that there may be 1 or 2 posts a week in a particular form, you're not going to really want to go back and check that form because there's no activity there,
right?
And so again, as a paying customer, as we all are, it should not be the customer's responsibility to go be chasing after when there's errors happen, bugs happen. But yeah. Anyway, I salvaged it, but had to fundamentally change for the Denver Broncos part of their season. So a game that they had won in the original replay wouldn't export for, I'm not sure why. It just wouldn't go. So they had to replay that game, and instead of winning it, they lost it. And who knows? I'm not sure if it will or will be the difference, but in a football season, 1 game is huge.
Yeah, it's too bad that you had a replay going and then, there was a glitch or an error or something that messed up. Yeah, that sucks, but you got most of it back. There was.
I got most of it back.
It wasn't going to be exact, so one team struggled a little bit with that. The replay.
I'd much rather there'll be a team that wasn't going to be a factor. And again, if it was just for my own personal thing, you just restart it anyway. But because it's a presentation on my channel, you really can't do that. Or I didn't feel comfortable doing it. Look, we played the first 10 weeks. It didn't matter. Let's do it all again. Bobby Ewing's in the shower now. It didn't happen. Donna Reed never played Miss Ellie. It didn't happen. All right. So that's my rant for the week.
All right. So anything else besides the Action PC football?
No, it's been a long personal week. So
okay. Now you play a little bit of Strat basketball, though, right?
I bought Strat basketball and liked it.
It looks good.
A while to play.
I was watching you play and a couple other people play it, and not a huge basketball fan, but if they have some kind of a sale coming up, I might pick it up and pick up a couple of stuff.
Probably do some stuff over Christmas, and that's a game that you can probably play a quarter, or you can save it at any point and pick it back up. So if you don't want to, I'm trying to figure out how to get that game for me to be under an hour and 2 hours without broadcasting it. There's no way you could broadcast it.
Unless you picked it up at halftime or something.
Right. But you can save it at any point, and you can zoom to any point. You can do that with a hockey game. In fact, in the hockey game, you can zoom to a specific minute.
Yeah, I discovered that by accident because somebody said that. So, I like how I can zip ahead, and I couldn't figure it out.
You can do that in the Action PC games, too.
Yeah.
So you can kind of make that as customizable as you want. So if you were to do a tournament and just wanted to pick up each game of the tournament in the fourth quarter, you could conceivably do that and be fine. But yeah, we'll talk about that maybe towards the end of the year when I play it a little more. I've enjoyed the game more than I thought I would. But basketball takes a long time to play, but you have to resolve almost about 200 actions in a basketball game.
Right.
Between the shots, depending on the era, and then turnovers and fouls and foul shots.
I did like what I saw. I did like what I saw, though. And I'm not a big basketball fan out of the 4 sports. That's...
Yeah, I would be the one I would have thought that I would have least likely to have bought, but I have enjoyed the small amount of time that I've spent with it.
Yeah, okay. All right, so should we get on to the topic du jour? Okay, here we go. All right, Ron, what is the topic of today's show?
Today's topic is perception versus reality. And specifically kind of like when you're doing a short season or a tournament and you expect a performance, and when you look at the reality, like, oh, maybe this is not what I kind of appear to be. We're going to start with that 69, the 70 Stanley Cup final. And if you grew up in New England, now you were barely alive in 1970, right?
Well, I wouldn't say barely alive. I mean, I was 3. I don't remember.
Okay, so you weren't pooping your own diapers.
I don't remember much about it, but I was kind of there. I had the shirt. Shirt.
I was not alive for the 1970 Stanley Cup final. I was born a good year and a half later. But as that went on, which is the year that Bobby Orr flew through the goal and the Bruins swept the Blues in 4 games, the perception of the Bruins being, that became, Dave, the giant fishing story. That the longer it went through, that fish went from 6 inches in 1970 to 5 feet long by the year 2000. The Bruins were the best things in sliced bread, and the Blues were a pitiful expansion team, and Bobby Orr saved the day and won that, which of course isn't true, but it makes for a great story because Bobby Orr is a deserved legend. And so Dave decides, you bought the computer season, right? For Stratomatic? That's how you got to play this, right? This is not Cards and Dice. You bought it in...
Yeah, I don't think I have 6970 in Cards and Dice. I got that, when they had the roster sale. So okay. I picked it up, yes.
It's the computer season, and you played game 1, and you kind of grumbled about it. And then you played game 2, and I got an earful about the stupid hot goalie, blah, 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 blah.
Well, what I tried to do is tried to play the 4
You were clever.
games.
You went with the as played.
I went with the as played goalie. Now, game 1, it was either game 1 or I think it was game 1. Jacques Plante actually got knocked out. He took a Stanfield tipped a shot and hit him in the mask, and so Ernie Wakely came in. But what I did is I let Plante play game 1, and then I was going to go Ernie Wakely game 2 for St. Louis, obviously. Mm-hmm. And then Glenn Hall played 3 and 4 in Boston, and then Cheevers played all 4 for Boston. So that was through the first 4 games, that was the plan. And then if it went beyond 4, I'd have to wing it from there. So that was the plan. So Plante,
they're clever.
So
Very
Plante,
clever.
Wakely, Hall. So I let Plante play the first game. Boston eked out a 3-2 win, and I was surprised at how difficult it was. In fact, Phil Esposito, my first line center, is a +2 on faceoffs, and the other guy in St. Louis, Goyette or something like that's a +3. Every faceoff I was at a disadvantage with Phil Esposito. That was nuts. But then
in real life, the Bruins won the first 2 games 6-1 and 6-2.
Yes, and then we get
Bruins advanced to the finals of Wimbledon and will face Steffi Graf.
So take over the story here. So I contacted you in game 2 through 2 periods, saying I'm getting smoked 5-1, and I get 36 shots on net.
And so I looked at Hockey Reference because perception is, even for me, and I didn't know, the Bruins, I mean, this was their golden team, and St. Louis, let's be honest, they were a 30-year expansion team. They had made it to 3 straight cups because the new 6 were all in the same division. So they were the best of watered-down, mediocre expansion teams. And so we all bought in the legend that the Bruins were a tremendous team. Until I looked at the stats for St. Louis. Now, scoring-wise, St. Louis was not all that in a bag of chips. But Jacques Plante had a goals against average of .219, and Ernie Wakely had a goal against average of .211 and was second in the NHL in save percentage at .930. And so when Dave showed me the Stratomatic card for Ernie Wakely, I mean, Marty Brodeur, the Hall of Famer, would kill for cards like what Wakely got there. And so it's like, how is that fair? That's not how it was. But game companies have to go on what they have a full set of stats for. And so you have to card or design a season in a closed engine or computer game based on the regular season. And so, yes, Plante with his 219 and Wakely with his 211, you got to give them the regular season cards. And so you don't know, when after the regular season's done, you don't know that Boston's going to score 12, outscore St. Louis 12-3 in St. Louis. you just go, you figure that this is what happened, and you kind of go from it. And so, although I think when you finish that series, is what 1-1, they split in St. Louis.
Yeah, I just finished that game too, and they lost. I think they ended up losing 6-2 in that one. But
Okay,
and I put 38 shots on,
which is the opposite of the real final score. It was Boston 6-2. I think that if you play that out, you would win that 7-game series. I think Boston has too much firepower, but the perception is, because, like I said, of the fish story, the trout that got longer and longer and longer as the time went on, that Boston should have beat the pants off them. Now, in game 3 was relatively close, and game 4, of course, was the overtime game, and those are the ones that Hall played in. And Boston, although a good team, they had 99 points in the regular season. They did tie Chicago for first place in the original 6th division. So, okay, Boston was a good team, regular season team, but they were not a great team, if that's fair. And so St. Louis was not as bad as the perception, and their goalkeeping was tremendous. And so how do you balance that in a sports sim when you go back through in the regular season? You know, how do you do that? Let's talk about this year's World Series a bit, okay? I know you're not a baseball fan, but how could you get a best-of-7 series, Dave, where the road team wins all 7 games? It's never happened in real life before. This year, if you were to take Washington and Houston, or heck, any best-of-7 series in any sport, how would you do that?
I don't know. How would you do that?
Exactly. I mean, we're talking before we came on the air about the Patriot and Giants Super Bowl, the 16-0 year, and Tom Brady's 4,800 yards and 50 touchdown passes and 689 completion percentage. How the hell do they lose to the New York Giants in any replay? Well, in real life, the Giants beat them.
And imagine if you played that replay,
the Patriots would win probably 19 out of 20.
Yeah,
I would think, because the Patriots were so dominant. How could you not card that? But you're the one that said, as I was looking it up, Brady didn't play great in the playoffs. And
yeah, so I mean that's the thing, is that, you know, so you card on the regular season, and playoffs are very different. And we had talked too about, you know, these guys that come in that have terrible regular seasons, and then they have awesome playoffs. So how does that affect your replay? If you you know, whether it's a individual card game, or if it's a team card game, you know, if somebody gets hot, is that going to be represented in the cards? I think that's very difficult to do.
I think it would be possible to do, and not really fair, because not everyone does playoffs. We talked a little bit when I was pitching the idea for the show about the Redskins' Timmy Smith, who in 1987 played in 7 games, had 20-some-odd carries for 129 yards. Okay, if there was a Super Bowl hero that was as unlikely as David Tyree was, his last catch was the helmet catch in that Super Bowl. It's Timmy Smith running through the Broncos for 209 yards, 2 touchdowns on 22 carries.
And you think too, like the 86 Patriots, you know, when they went and they got destroyed by the Bears in the 86 Super Bowl there, they won 3 road games as a wild card team.
That's right.
You know, I always wanted to go back and, you know,
to go into Miami and beat them to go to the Super Bowl.
I was thinking about going back to game-winning drive or something like that, or even fast action football, and giving that a whirl with that team to see what they would do. I'm willing to bet that they're one and done. Not even getting close to the Super Bowl.
Who did they?
They played the Jets, they played the Raiders, and they played the Dolphins, all on the road.
They probably would have beaten the Jets.
That was the wild card game.
To go into Los Angeles and beat the Raiders, well, you know, the Raiders weren't that great. The Patriots were just I bet they would get to Miami, but they hadn't won in Miami in what, 15 years?
A long time, yeah.
It's been a long, long time. And honestly, until they beat the Rams to win that first Super Bowl, that was the biggest win in franchise history, to go into Miami and do. Yeah, because that's Marino, the year that Marino threw for 50 touchdown passes, which was unheard of in 1980, that era.
Right. But you just wonder what that card would look like for the 85, 86 Patriots. You know what I mean?
Right. And you know, we're doing the 80s. I'm doing the 86 replay, and the perception of Tony Eason not recovering from the pounding he took in that Super Bowl, he is cleaning up in my replay. He's the top-rated passer in 1986. The Patriots are 6-3 in my replay, and are legitimate Super Bowl contenders again. Again, the perception is from my 14-year-old brain was the Patriots just could never mentally recover from what happened that January at the Superdome, that the Bears just beat the daylights out of them. But the reality is, oh no, this team could easily go back to the Super Bowl, and so can the Bears.
And the Bears never did. That's the weird thing about it.
The Bears never did.
And we talked about this on the show before, that if you had told the Patriots fan after that Super Bowl that, you know, the Patriots would go on to play in 9 other Super Bowls and win 6 of them, you'd be laughing, you know.
Oh my gosh.
After the beating they took, yeah. And the Bears wouldn't go back for 15 years after that.
20. Almost 20.
Almost 20 years. So that Bears team was a one-hit wonder, you know.
Yeah, that was when you sat there that night or woke up that Monday morning after that Super Bowl. I mean, no one would ever thought, nope, you're never seeing this group in the Super Bowl again.
Yep. And you wonder what the card would be for the next year for the Bears and how they would do, you know.
And that's the thing, is that I remember there was a long discussion once in the computer game 2nd and 10 forum about I forget who, it wasn't Devin Hester, but it was somebody in a situation that we're talking about where someone who did not have a regular season kickoff return for a touchdown popped one in a playoff game. And the back and forth was, should that player be allowed to have a kickoff return for a touchdown? Well, in the regular season, where every game makes their stuff from, he couldn't have one, which would make it theoretically impossible to do it in the playoffs. But I don't remember the name of the player or the team, but that's what this particular player is best known for. Popping, maybe like a Fulton Walker, who I think had a touchdown from Miami to start a Super Bowl where they got killed. You know, should things happen in a game that could not happen or did not happen in real life? I remember in my baseball replay, in the 82 replay I did, I had a chance box that showed what any batter could do against any given pitcher, just to give more of an open-engine type field. I never really took it seriously. Someone wanted it. It was there, and I just never took it down. And got grief because someone who had 2 triples could theoretically not hit a triple against a certain pitcher. You know, just one of those, yes, anything can happen, but should it? You know, at what point do we fudge for our perceptions?
And just to kind of add on to that is I was playing the Strat PC game, and I decided to do a fantasy draft season. So I took the 81-82 season, released all the players, and tried to figure out how to do the fantasy draft. And I think I figured it out. And as I'm getting down to the last few picks of this fantasy draft, there was a couple of players on there that still had 4 offense. And I was like someone like Oris Kindrachuk, if you remember him from the Flyers, I think he was. And I think it said he had played 1 game with Washington. 1 game.
Well, the PC seasons, you get everybody carded.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that I kind of felt guilty taking him because he was a 4 offense and he'd only played 1 game. And there was another guy that was a phenomenal defenseman and he had played 6 games. So my conscience was saying, well, it's not fair to take this guy as a 4 offense if he only played the 1 game, but that's what his card said. And if I'm going to have him play an entire season or not, and just like you in the Action PC game, you know, you actually activated one of the Howe sons to play, so all 3 could play.
He only played 6 games all year.
He played 6 games, but you suited him up for the broadcast. So
because it was if it was a regular 79-80 replay, I wouldn't have done that.
Now
I
picked him. I picked him in my season, and he didn't play a lot of games that season either. So I think I have both Howes on my team in that fantasy draft, even though one of them didn't play a lot of games, but his ratings were good. So I got a handful of guys on my team that have good ratings, but just didn't play a lot of games.
That's another thing. If you
and by the way, we're not knocking any games here
Not
by
at all.
any means. We're not saying these games are terrible for doing this. We're just kind of talking about the perception versus the reality of what happens in, So, hey, this happened with the Bruins, but it's not happening in my replay. And Kindrachuk played one game, and now I'm going to pick him up, and he might play 80 games and be a star for me.
And, okay, so what would you do with 75, 76 Bobby Orr, who had only played 9-10 games and had a tremendous start to that season? I did that season in Action PC, and after 10 games, he was going to not only win the assist title, he was going to run away and hide with it.
Yeah, so what do you do?
Do
you take him out, or do you play the what if Bobby Orr never got hurt?
Well, and that's the advantage of these games, is that you can do that. I suppose if I was a Bruins fan, hell yes, I'd want that. Imagine Brad Park and Bobby Orr in the same defensive pairing, because that's why they made the trade for Park and Rattel, because they needed someone to replace Orr, and I think Esposito had worn out his welcome. Is that what it was?
I'm not sure. I mean, it could have been.
I mean, I can look. I mean, that had to be one of the most controversial trades in Bruins
history.
history.
They knew that Orr was on the way out, and they needed a solid defenseman. That's why they got Park.
And they got a lot of good years out of Park. Here's a real life example of perception versus reality. Kyle Schwarber. I know you don't follow baseball. Cubs in 2015. Schwarber's hurt most of the year. He hits 125. He strikes out 8 gazillion times when he does play. When he makes contact, it is loud, it is long, and it is gone. But in the National League Championship Series against the Mets, he popped 3 home runs, as I spit on myself, including one that landed on the new scoreboard at Wrigley Field. They left it there all winter. But if you played his card, he would not duplicate that performance in a gazillion years. But he became a folk hero in Chicago because he popped 3 home runs in a league championship series.
Yeah, and that it's the fun of it, but it's also a little the frustration of it, because when I was playing my Bruins replay, I couldn't believe that Wakely made all these saves. I'm like, who's this Wakely guy? He got lit up 6-1, But again, you play these games. I mean, it's all good. But it was just, I remember walking away from the PC going, man, I played 2 periods. I'm down 5-1 to St. Louis. I can't score. That's not how it was in real life. So the perception is, hey, I should be stomping, and the reality is the cards were telling a different story. And I know there's some chance there too with rolling the dice or whatever spits out the result.
Right, but that's right. There's a chance, but the reality is, do you make Wakely bad because that's the way that you think it's going to be, or do you do it because you got to be fair to everybody? I mean, the computer or the game itself. In a basic hockey game, you're looking at, okay, I don't really care who wins. If I'm a game designer, I'm looking at, I want to make sure that my total shots are going to be similar to what they should be, that Wayne Gretzky's going to get more shots than my third line scrub defenseman, okay? But I want to make sure that my goals per game is about right and my save percentage is about right. And especially in a cards and dice game where you can't be super precise like you can on a computer. Well, even if a computer, you're going to have a bell curve. And so when you look at that and go, oh, well, that's not right. But you look at the macro and say, oh, it actually did a pretty good job replicating what it was supposed to do. You got to be honest and say, look, this is what this kid did. And the kid, like I said, he was 25 years old before I was born. So I'm the kid. This particular player, that's the job he did. You can't discount him. I mean, I suppose in like Action PC or something else, you might put a minus in the clutch rating because he stung up the joint in a playoff game.
But I kind of like the craziness that I'm experiencing, because even in my 72 Cup Finals, Game 2, as I said I was playing, 8-4 Rangers, it was a third-line player for the Rangers, Fairburn. I don't even remember Fairburn, but he was third line on the Rangers. He got 2 goals. And that's what put the Rangers up, I think, 4-1. 2 goals in the first period for a third-line guy playing strat hockey.
Yeah.
It's just how it went. And so here's this guy coming out of nowhere. It wasn't Rattel. It wasn't Gilbert. It wasn't Hadfield. It was Fairburn, and I'd never, I don't say I never heard of this guy. I just don't remember this guy. He was a third line player. All the other ranges, I remember most of the other ranges because Boston, New York. That's all you got out here was Boston, New York when you were a kid. There was obviously no cable TV or anything back in the day, but it was just like, wow, Fairburn with 2 goals. Holy smokes! Third line guy cashing in, and third line get a lot less ice time than lines 1 and 2. And there's this guy getting 2 goals on one shift.
Okay, last 2 games I played in Edmonton in my 81-82 Strat replay. Wayne Gretzky, 2 wins, no points. It's the year he had 212 points.
He comes
so
up
he should
empty.
be getting about 2.5 points a game. He didn't get anything the last 2 games. It happens. Do you expect it? No. But again, the perception is that Gretzky should be scoring 2-3 points a night. Doesn't always happen. There's going to be a night he's going to pop off 5 or 6. And I forgot the fact he had a hat trick. You just kind of wonder. And so I guess that's the reason you do that. And then you can kind of go through, we talked about Schwarber, the Kinderchuk thing. If you are doing a strict as played replay or at least a real roster replay, no, he plays this 1 game. Thank you very much for your services and have a nice career. But if you are, let's say, was he with Philadelphia that year?
It said Washington.
Okay, so if you're Washington, who was just starting to get good, that's when they had Maruk, who was scoring 45, 50 goals, and I think Gartner is there that particular year. If you figure that if you got that and want to push Washington deeper in the playoffs, or at least hold on to a 3-1 lead, you'd play him because the job, if you're doing a single team replay, is for the team to do its best. Just like I wouldn't think anything less of any Bruin replayer who wanted to play Orr for a full season when he played 15 games, or if you were to play the 67 Red Sox and don't injure Tony Congligliero in the middle of August.
Well, that's the fun about playing these games is you can
do whatever you want.
Yeah, you can take him out and say he's injured, or you can play him through to see how it would have panned out. I'm a big fan of the what if scenarios. I knew you like to do the as play, but I like the what ifs because I've already done the as played for me. I want to see something different. I want to see, what would happen if this, or what would happen if this guy played on this team. And but getting back to the perception versus reality, it kind of smacks you in the face a little bit when you pick a project like I have, and I think it's going to go a certain way, and it absolutely doesn't. And I run into a hot team, a hot goalie, whatever it is. Look at my, the couple of replays I did with the 0-14 Tampa Bay Buccaneers when I did that project back over the summer. They actually won a game. The 0-14 Buccaneers won a game. I think I played 8 different football games. I think they beat Miami. I played 8 different football games, most of them quick play games. And they ended up winning one, and there's no way they should have won that. In fact, they beat Pittsburgh. Remember that was?
No, they scored on Pittsburgh, which they shouldn't have done. I think it was Miami that they beat.
Oh no, that was the Mike Seelock. When I did Mike Seelock, they beat Miami, I think it was. But the other project I did was, remember I did the Pittsburgh Tampa Bay one because that was the biggest blowout.
Mm-hmm.
And
and Pittsburgh kept scoring 17 points.
Yeah, it was in momentum football. That's what it was. Downey Gaines momentum football. Tampa Bay actually beat Pittsburgh, and they in Action PC, I think it was like 52-0. Right. And then in every other one was close. It was 30-17, 24-10. But that one game I played, because I played all these different games. Yep, I remember doing that. That was the second project, Tampa Bay versus Pittsburgh. Because I took the biggest blowout. I wanted to see what would happen if I played 8 games in the blowout, and they beat them. And they shouldn't have. They shouldn't have beat them. But it was fun. It was interesting. It was something to talk about. It just Pittsburgh fumbled the ball. They kept rolling at 11, fumbled the ball. Tampa Bay, they had one chance to get momentum, and they would roll and get the momentum. It was crazy.
That's right. I do remember that. Now, here's one. You'll joke with me forever about walk-off safeties. But that particular 78 Kansas City Chiefs team that we did last year for the replay, in real life was 4-12. but they kept winning and they kept winning and they kept winning. No thanks to me. And actually, I got them to win 2 or 3 times. And I remember going to someone else and going, this is terrible. Why are they winning? They can't throw the football. All they can do is run. In fact, I think one game I had them running out of a wishbone or a single wing or something like that because all they could do was run. And a viewer looked them up on Pro Football and said, Ron, they lost 4 games by a total of 3 points or 4 points. And so when you start looking at the reality, like, it can be done because if you just change 4 points, that goes from a 4-12 team to an 8-8 team. And you go another way. So, yeah, an 8-8 team could easily win 10 games. It's whatever. And so Kansas City somehow made my playoffs. They got killed in the playoff game, but they made the playoffs. And again, the perception is you look at the quick record and go, oh, this 4-12 team is stink. How the hell they do that? Well, here's exactly how they did it. They kept games close. Their defense was good. And you roll a certain dice or get a random number generator, it's there. And so you couldn't be mad that they had actually done the impossible and overperformed by 6 games. The game showed you how it did it, even in a closed engine. So,
yeah. Well, if you lose by a point, that's
right. I mean, it's hard.
It's a loss, but I mean, if you do a replay and you win with them, it's really not that too far out of the realm.
So for Tampa to, if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the 76 ones had gone 7-7. I'd have some problems with that. But if you can show me that a team hung around games and lost a bunch by 2, 3, 4 points, okay.
They were close that 76 season. There was a couple games that they were within 1 score and they lost.
New Orleans and Seattle, I think, right?
Miami, actually.
Miami.
They almost beat Miami at home. I think it was a 3 or 4 point loss, and they played Seattle, and that was another close game. But there was some big time blowouts, and that's what I did when I did the Pittsburgh project, just to see what would happen. The Action PC game was hysterical, by the way. I think that's on my channel. I think I did it on the channel. It was just a blowout. It was too funny. But getting back to perception versus reality. We want to know your thoughts on this and your experiences if you're listening to the show. What are some of the things that happened to you? That you were expecting somebody to hit a ton of home runs, to score a bunch of goals, or pitch really good, or say pretty good, or if you're playing football to get a lot of touchdowns, and maybe someone just stunk the joint up and you couldn't believe it, or maybe someone come out of nowhere, some bench guy come out of nowhere and had a terrific performance in your replay. So tell us, we'd like to know. Some of your stories here when we start talking about perception and reality, because it's happened quite a few times that it really slapped me in the face the other day when Ernie Wakely just shut me down and made 34-35 saves. Esposito could not score on a rebound to save his life. And if there's one guy that's going to score on a rebound in 69-7, it's going to be Phil Esposito, and he couldn't do it. And it just drove me nuts that I was piling up the shots and nothing was going in. And but if like Ron said, let's look at his card. We looked at his card, and he had a fantastic card, and he didn't even start in the playoffs. They started Jacques Plant,
and Plant wasn't that bad either.
No,
I mean, his goals against was .219.
Yeah, so I guess that's one thing you got to look at. You do have to look at the player card or the team card, and it may be a lot different than you remember it.
Exactly. And that's what makes it fun, because we play games to relive or to learn about certain eras. And like I said, the fish get bigger as the story gets older, and sometimes the fish was pretty small. Not saying that Bruins should have struggled with the Blues, but looking back on it, St. Louis should have given them some trouble.
They played them tough in the regular season, from what you said.
Tied them twice. Yeah. They played 6 times and they tied twice.
Yeah. So, all right. So, any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
I think we're pretty good.
All right. So here we go. Let's wrap things up here. Episode 17 of Digital to Dice. Yeah, thank you so much for tuning in to the Digital to Dice podcast, episode 17, Perception versus Reality. We talked about some of our experiences in some of the games we played when people just didn't perform as well, or they performed too good from what we remember them actually doing. So good discussion today with that. Ways to get a hold of us. Our text line, 978-751-DICE, 978-751-3423. DigitalDice.com is the website, and on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/digitaltodice. And please get those Black Friday, Cyber Monday sales in to any of those places there. And if you want to send me an email directly, dave.gardner@rocketmail.com. Ron, thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure.